Kia ora koutou, and welcome to another episode of South Pacific Muscle. I've got Mike on my left here, but not the usual Mike. So, Mike Hulusi, welcome on board, bro. How are you?
Thanks, Nate. Thanks for having me. Good, bro.
Awesome, man. And Mr. Tab, how are you doing, brother?
Oh, I won't bore you.
joys of teaching, eh, bro?
I didn't teach today. I had migraines last night, so I stayed home. But I had to go to the gym at midday and got busted by some school kids and a couple of teachers at school. So took the day off school and went to the gym and got busted.
The shame of it. So for those that haven't come across Mike, we'll show you a bit of his Insta a bit later. But Mike's training out in Melbourne and just come out of lockdown, back into the gym.
Yeah, I think lockdown number 144 for Melbourne these days. But it's good to be back out of lockdown, back to some sort of normality. Although over here, you sort of never feel quite, too far from a pending lockdown because it seems that the slightest, sneeze, everyone's running for the hills. So yeah, it's tough, but you adapt.
I've caught a lot of the commentary with Tony Doherty coming on and saying that the industry's really taking a beating and just some real mad things like brothels are open, but gyms aren't open.
Yeah, again, so, when the chief health officer they keep referring to says that all the data says that, they make decisions based on science and facts, but then they let brothels open and then they keep gyms closed.
Face mask, gotta wear a mask.
Yeah, got to wear a mask, got to social distance while, servicing or whatever else they do. What are they doing there? But it's just crazy. I mean, that I think that, everyone's seen the data now, millions and millions of check-in points across Australia, not just Victoria, but across Australia, and not one COVID case, linked to any of those check-ins. They claim that in Victoria, there was 27 cases, I think, last lockdown. But that was like a home gym. It was literally a guy's backyard or a garage that he converted into a gym with some a rack and some dumbbells, and then there was 27 cases linked to that garage. It wasn't a gym, but because there was people training there, that's what they say gyms are so dangerous. So it just seems absurd, like really, because we know that, I know over here, and again you guys have seen Tony being very vocal about it as well, the fact that we sanitize, we clean, we wipe up after ourselves, we check in, members, casuals, everyone's accountable in and out of the doors. But you've got places like, Coles and Woolworths and shopping centers open, and, now they at least are asking you to check in to say, hey, we've been here through the QR code system. But I mean, you say, yeah, I'll check in, and no one checks. So you've got thousands and thousands of people in and out of these places, and there's no accounting for any of them really. Yeah. But at the gym, you can control that. But yet there seems to be some vendetta against the industry, which is hard because I know Tony well. I know a lot of the gyms that we're involved with who struggle, and it's really, really hard.
Yeah, man. I've just see Wellington has hit level 2, courtesy of an Australian that flew over and visited everywhere under the sun in Wellington. So for those people in Wellington that are having to isolate, I know not all of you are, but if you're at some of those places, guys, hopefully that passes pretty soon and we get lots of negative tests. But kind of want to get back to normal. So let's all do the right thing. And luckily our government's been pretty sensible about what it's choosing to shut down and what it's not. So
it seems to be, yeah, for sure. And that's what it looks like from over here. It looks like that, New Zealand has somewhat handled it, reasonably well compared to, again, what we're going through. And again, make no mistake, I say it's hard to be in lockdown, but I see what's happening in India and even the US, and it's crazy over there, really crazy. I've got friends over there. I've only ever heard of one person say to me that they actually know someone who died of COVID. Only one person, and that person was in Turkey. I don't know anyone else who's got COVID, who's contracted COVID, who's been health-wise affected by COVID. But look, I've got no doubt there's something out there, and it affects a lot of people, health-wise. Unfortunately, it seems that in Australia, it's affecting a lot of people mentally and financially more than anything else, which is, and socially, because people are getting, isolated.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's one of the things I always worry about is, you know, we shut down, and for good reason we do, but then, you know, you got a bunch of people that lose their social network, and for some people, well, for a lot of people, the gym's therapy, man, and you know, and they lose that. So anyway, here's hoping on to better times.
Absolutely.
Now, I saw a little photo. I might just bring this up, Mike, so people can see what we're talking about. But I saw you popped a photo up on Insta the other day. And for those that don't follow Mike, jump on there. Live like Mike, one team.
Live like Mike, one team.
Yep. So get on there. But I see you're 17 weeks out, sitting at about 125-ish.
Yeah, 125. I sort of hover at the moment. I've just cut down my calories to about 5,000, which is definitely a deficit for me at this stage anyway. I push around 7,500 when I'm trying to grow or put on size, which is a lot of food and it's hard to get down, especially in the digestive system. Yeah, and not that weight's everything, but for whatever reason, I mean, I have a higher weight than most. And, I would like to think that I stay fairly lean year round. There's no need for me to really push out size, and if anything, because of the amount I have to eat, I'm just scared of my waist getting any bigger than it already is. So I mean, at the moment I have to make my shoulders and back and quads and everything so big because structurally I haven't got that 26-inch waist that some people have, but we play to our strengths, so I can put on size and I can get bigger, but more than anything I'm just trying to stay balanced. So 125, which for this point, for where I am in terms of how big I look, and look is the most important thing, and how balanced I am, it's the best position I've ever been in, for sure. So I'm really excited. We're probably thinking around 118 to 120 on stage.
What height are you, Mike?
176 centimeters, so 5'10".
Yeah, that's a whole lot of size on a 5'10" frame, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm trying to maximize it as much as I can.
I was going to pull up this last year on stage.
Yeah, that was last year on stage. So I was 116 there.
Nice. So what do you see as your improvements this year that you're going to bring to stage?
Definitely my back thickness, back width, just upper body being more balanced to my lower body. So, I think that when I first competed back in 2015, I felt like my legs were just like, my limbs in general, but my legs, I grew up idolizing like, Tom Platz, Branch Warren, even Dorian Yates. And, I just sort of was always one of the legs. I wanted just to have massive legs. So over the next, years, not that I didn't train upper body, but I think I brought a level of intensity to my leg training, which, I don't think I've seen in person anyone match. And that's not me being, everyone's got their gifts, but I just have this ability just to switch off and go to an absolute pain threshold, and then extend that even as well from there. And yeah, it paid off for the legs, but then it became overpowering where I needed to bring up my arms and my back so that I looked more balanced on stage, because, I can be bigger than everyone else, but like last year when I was against Christian in the pro qualifier and he beat me, and I beat him back in 2018. But he beat me, and look, then I was bigger. I felt I was better conditioned than him, but he had more balance to his physique. And that was the feedback I got from the judges and Tony. So that's all I've got to fix. I mean, and at the end of the day, as much as I love training legs, because that's where I really, my therapy, if you like. I've pulled back legs to maybe once a week this whole time. I've never done that before, just trying to, again, prioritize or give more recovery ability to my upper body, mainly my back, my arms, and my delts. So, and hopefully that pays off. I feel like in pictures, I'm a lot more balanced up, top to bottom. I feel like for the first time when I turn around and hit like a rear double, I can see pro-ish sort of, pop pro-ish sort of shape. I can see more, when I hit a lat spread, I seem as wide as what my quad sweep is, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that the balance is the biggest thing for me.
Did you have any difficulty maintaining the intensity of your upper body training, having backed off your legs, or is the intensity still there on your legs, just decrease the frequency?
I think the intensity is heightened on the legs because I know it's one day. You know, I train pretty much a Dorian Yates split of, you know, one, maybe two working sets for most of my life. And sort of, so I bring that, you know, you've got one set to make it. And so, so if anything, I think because I know it's my only day, you know, I have to take a rest day after my legs because it's just like, you know, it's a really battle for me. But then again, I'm trying to again apply that same intensity to, you know, chest, to arms, to back as well. So it hasn't backed off, but I've definitely been able to spread it out a bit more evenly across the upper body as well, for sure. And that's just again taking on, you know, advice and hey, you know, it's a sport where we want to be our best. And yes, it's a form of, you know, for me, therapy, and it's how I make my living now. I do this full time. But at the end of the day, like, you know, it's a sport where we have to take on the advice and the comments and the feedback from the people who judge us on stage. And, you know, I say this a lot. It's like, you know, you see a lot of bickering back and forwards in the bodybuilding world, you know, at a pro level, I can understand, but at an amateur level, it's like, at the end of the day, guys, we're going to get on stage in X amount of weeks' time, and 5 strangers are going to judge us, you know, based on what they like, not what we like about each other. So I think you have to take on that advice. You have to take on the feedback, and to improve, you know, I think judges reward that as well, especially like, you know, if you compete in Australia, you've generally got the same sort of judges judging you from show to show. You know, Michael Booner being head judge for most of my competing career anyway, as short as that is. But, you know, when they can see you, when they give feedback, when they give, you know, you suggestions and on areas you can improve, and then when they see that on stage, I think they really, really appreciate and reward that. So that's what I'm working towards.
That's a really good point, because we often hark on at people about getting feedback from the judges. And if you're professional about it and you're wanting to improve your physique and your placings, you know, you do have to give the judges what they're looking for. So I guess, you know, what you're saying there is that when you do get that feedback and you take it on board, you're actually rewarded for those improvements, because, you know, the judge that judged you, you know, 1, 2, 3 shows ago is going, shit, this guy's actually brought us back up like we told him to. So
yeah, and then when you're on stage and they're drawn to that, because like, oh, hang on a second, like, you know, Mike looks better than last time. And then again, like, we can sit here and say we all have opinions about who looked better on a certain day. You know what I mean? It's always a, you know, again, it's not a sport where like powerlifting, if you pick the weight up, you pick the weight up. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things. In sprinting, if you're the fastest, that's black and white. But here, it's not. It's you know, how people interpret how you look on stage. It's all an illusion. So yeah, when you sort of create that I suppose the feeling of, oh, Mike's improved a lot here, it draws their eyes to you, and the more they look at you, the more likely you're going to be judged higher in the rank, in the placings anyway.
Hey, do you want to tell us a bit about the Aussie season? Because I know you guys have a season A and a season B, and I'm assuming you guys are coming into season B now. Do you have state qualifiers and internationals? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so essentially, you know, Tony's putting on what's called the FitFest this year. You know, I think Tony used to run something called the FitX for a number of years, and that converted over into the Arnold's with his partnership to Lorimer and stuff as well. So I think Tony really missed, you know, back in 2020 when everything was happening with COVID, you know, Tony really wanted to put on a show, you know, and we had state qualifiers, and the Arnold was on, then it was off, then it was on, then it was off, and there was the expo, then it was no expo, and it was really back and forwards, and it was hard being that time because, you know, like physically at that point in time, you're ready anyway. Well, you know, those last 2 weeks, but it was mentally thinking like, you know, am I going to compete? Am I not? And I know that Tony was working his hardest, and he ended up putting on a show, you know, and it wasn't the Arnold's, but, you know, it was a show. And so we got to stand up there as well. Well, not, but he really wanted to put on season B. He missed out on that opportunity because of COVID, you know, and so then he put on, you know, season A, and even that was touch and go because there was, you know, small lockdowns, you know, here and there, but he did it. And so he's really, really big on making this season B, you know, a big comeback for bodybuilding as well. And I think it'll be really successful because people love those expos, you know what I mean? It's where we, you know, as an industry, as people who identify, you know, as people who, you know, lift or live a lifestyle, that's, you know, what we determine as bodybuilding or close to it. then it says what we want to do. We want to be around those people and get involved in an event. So yeah, it's the FitFest. That season B, there's qualifiers before. They're starting around October. I think the same weekend as the New Zealand Nationals.
The 9th of October.
Yeah, that's when the state qualifiers start, and over the next 3 weeks. And then November 6th is the actual Nationals/FitFest pro qualifier in Australia.
I was aware of FitFest, but I didn't kind of put 2 and 2 together that the Nationals were at FitFest. So
on the main stage, yeah, for sure.
For Kiwis down that we got the bubble. I know a few of you have been talking about going to FitFest, so even more motivation to get over there now and see the best of what Aussie's got on stage this year.
Yeah, it will be a massive show. Like, I think that from the people who, again, they say they're competing now, hopefully everyone, follows through their prep and has no injuries and everything along the way. But, people haven't competed for a while, it feels like. Even season A, as good as it was to see bodybuilding, it wasn't a level or didn't have the depth that we normally expect as of late. So, it's going to be great to see so many people, competitors, athletes on stage giving their best because they've missed out for a long time. So
who else are we expecting in the open the bodybuilding in general? I'm assuming you get the other Mike will be joining you.
Mike Pearson potentially. I think that he competed season A. Obviously, he missed out on the pro card. And look, one of the first times you've seen a super heavy get pushed out of the pro card. So congrats to Brad as well for that. Yeah, it was great. And I thought it was deserved as well, on stage. But Mike, you've got Tim Mckinnon from up north.
Yeah, true. Yep.
Tim beat me back in 2019 at my worst, I believe, as well, when I was 103 kilos after just a failed prep where I over dieted too hard. I competed in 2018 113, then 2019, and I lost by 1 point in 2018 to Arthur at the Nationals. And then I competed in 2019 103, so I was 10 kilos lighter. So it was just over dieting. But Tim beat me then. And then there's also, I think, Chris Cavalos is doing it. You've got a couple other names like Lucky had Pantala, so he's going to be doing it as well. James Ormsby, I think Sadiq Travali as well. Also, will be getting up there. So then you got other people like Mike Dawn, even Dean McKillop. A lot of those guys doing the show as well, who are great competitors. So it's going to be a really, really great show and depth across the board. Deep lineups. Whatever state. And the Nationals should just be epic. So I'm looking forward to it.
That sounds like a phenomenal lineup. I mean, I only know probably a handful of Aussie guys, but at least 5 of those names I know exactly who they are, and some of those guys have been around for quite a while now, and have put quality physiques up there year after year, and probably only just missed out on pro cards in previous years.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of guys there who are top contenders, no doubt. I know Tim finished 4th at Las Vegas Amateur Olympia in 2019. Yep. Which is no mean feat. He's been, pushing for a Nationals super heavy title. Actually, Chris has beat him twice now. Again, controversially or not, but he has beat him twice at Nationals. And Lucky's obviously, well known for what he's done and his comeback. And then James has been around for a long time. James Ormsby, I think he competed in New Zealand for a little while as well. So yeah, it's going to be really, really good. Deep lineup.
Awesome. Mike, I'm sure you've got something to ask.
I certainly have. I was looking at your Insta and you lift some pretty impressive weights, especially legs, but I saw some pretty good benching too. Have you modified your training or done anything over the years to protect your joints with all that sort of load?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've always lifted heavy. I used to use a lot of straps, like, knee straps, knee sleeves, even elbow sleeves as well. I went away from that because I didn't want to, I felt like straps, as much as they can protect your joints, they can also mask niggles and injuries that you should be attending to, if that makes sense. So for instance, if I wrap up my knees, I can probably put another 20, 30, 40 kilos on in terms of weight, but I'm still causing stress to my joint. And I believe that just because the wrap masks it, then I could take the wraps off and be doing a leg extension, then it pops up then. So I stopped using wraps for that. But I've always, watching Dorian Yates, and I've invested a lot of time and money in training with a lot of pros. So like, Milos Sarcev, Chris Cormier, Ben Pekulski, Tom Platz, John Meadows, even Dennis James, a lot of pros, and just sort of, observing and really trying to take on principles from all those pros, because I believe that success leaves clues. There's no point in me reinventing the wheel. It's just trying to see what others have done and how can I maybe improve or just apply that to my own training. So I've always been a big believer in, just controlled eccentrics mainly. So, really, really controlling on the way down, 2 to 3 seconds. Even though it might be a fast one, but just controlling. If I can't control on the way down, then I won't lift the weight. As simple as that. I don't bounce out of reps, and I spend a lot of time on mobility, so warming up, making sure everything's feeling good. I have had some knee tendonitis over the years, but I manage that with making sure my glutes, hips, and ankles are moving well also. So a lot of people who don't seek out treatment when they feel a niggle, they're gonna essentially run into trouble somewhere along the line. I have up to 2-hour treatments weekly with a myotherapist and chiro, because I just, this is what I do for a living. So I want to make sure I can live for as long as possible. But people, don't understand, again, well, maybe just neglect the fact that if they're training 5 to 6 times a week for an hour to 2 hours in the gym, that's athlete level. Like, most serious athletes, they would train that much. So they're doing that on top of everything else they're doing in the day, like, working and family and whatever else. So I think that, it's a bit naive to think that they can train like athletes, but then get away with not doing the proper, prehab, rehab that athletes would go through as well. So I've invested a lot of time, money into making sure that I get that treatment so I can keep my body performing in the gym. I was naturally strong, even without training, if that makes sense anyway. I just translated that into bodybuilding. Again, taking on a Dorian Yates mindset of just recording everything. So progressive overload, stronger each week, I've had some really, really, impressive, I suppose, lifts. I've had powerlifters, strongmen come up to me and sort of say, hey, like, you should give it a go. And it doesn't interest me, doing powerlifting or strongman at all. But, I know that if I really push myself, like, I could be a lot stronger. And I got a 400 kilo squat in me, like, no dramas. I could probably do it now if I worked up to it, but I don't want to because the risk, it's not there. I think during lockdown, I was working with a safety bar. That's all I had in my house at the start of the first lockdown in Iraq. And within the first 6 weeks, I was up to 300 kilos on a safety squat bar for 8 reps and up to 4 sets. And the thing is that at that weight, it's just too much risk in terms of what can go wrong. But even though I was lifting that weight, it was always with a controlled form. So I think that, really, really controlling the eccentrics and, not letting your ego get the best of you will serve you a long way in terms of, being able to lift, without having those injuries and niggles that can plague us all, for sure. And I've been lucky, touch wood. I've invested time, but there's no doubt there's an element of, it hasn't happened to me. So I'm really thankful for that as well.
You spoke about the warm-ups and the mobility and so on. And when people see, Dorian Yates on Blood and Guts, they see the top 2 sets or so on. So how much you train that style, how much would you do by way of a warm-up before you kind of get to those heavy ones?
So the warm-up for me isn't really about the weight being lifted. So let's say on a hack squat. So I did a hack squat today, just an example. I start off with 1 plate, 2 plates aside, 3 plates aside, 4 plates aside, 5 plates aside, 6 plates, up to 7 plates aside on a Cybex hack squat. Now, those warm-up sets, if you like that, they're more of like an acclimation, because I'm just letting the body know that, hey, I'm going to lift weights. And so it's like 3, 4, 5 reps, then rack it, 3, 4, 5 reps, then rack it. I'm not doing, 15 rep warm-up sets. Okay. So I work up to a weight for the big movements, but if it's a leg extension, then I'll do maybe one, just again, acclimatizing set where I let the body know this is the range of motion, this is what we're doing right now, and then into a working set. But I will spend 20 minutes prior to any exercises on machines or whatever, doing, active stretching. So not really static stretching in terms of like, stretching and holding it stretch, but like, moving through larger ranges of motion for my hip flexors, for my adductors, for my ankles, my glutes, my lower back, my core, making sure everything's turned on. That'll take me 20 minutes, and it's boring. The thing is, sometimes it gets so boring that people don't want to do it because they want to get in the gym to lift. But the minute that I start to neglect that is when the niggles start. That's when at the bottom of my hack squat, I feel my knee twinge. And it's like, my knees are now giving out before my quads. And I really, really like, it's the worst day for my wife if she, if that happens, because I'm just a grump for the whole day. If I can't train and perform the way I want to, then I'm not myself. So I realize how important that is for me. And I spend, like I said, a lot of time going through those warm-ups, and I've looked at like, Charles Poliquin, Andrew Locke, and a lot of guys who are big on movement patterns and mobility, even the Australian strength coach. I just work in trying to, again, take things from them and work into my own. And I've got a really good system now for me that works. And a lot of my clients I share that with as well. And I've had clients who have been like, hey, Mike, you put, hack squat in my program, but I can't do it. Like, it hurts too much. I said, look, I'm happy to change the exercise, but have you ever tried to find out why you can't hack squat? Like, there must be a reason. And like, oh, now we've just always just not done it. And I'm like, well, why don't we try, taking proper warm-ups, mobility, and legit giving them the same routine that I do. I said, it's going to take you 15 minutes, but spend the time and do it. And the message back first session is, Mike, no pain, no knee pain, or whatever, no lower back pain. And it's the first time they've spent at any time actually warming up properly. And when I say warming up, not sets on the machine before your working set, but making sure your ligaments, tendons, everything are in a range of motion. It's going to allow you to perform that range of motion under weight.
It's I think a really good message for especially us non-professional athletes, people who don't do it for a living. We're always pretty time poor, we're rushing in, rushing out, other obligations, to kind of make that a priority and make that a good proportion of the time that we spend training. And
just on that as well, when it is an issue, because I know some people have, there might be FIFO, might have only 45 minutes in the gym, out in the mining sites, whatever the case may be. But generally speaking, you've got some downtime somewhere in your day. So, doing 15 minutes of stretching before you go to sleep, again, boring. I understand. It's much cooler to scroll through Instagram or whatever, you want to do. But if you spend 15 minutes before bed and, it makes you feel 10 times better the next day, or in the morning straight out of bed, then it's worth it. So I think, again, time and money are generally, never the issue when people say they are. It's just prioritizing. So, if you want to lift heavy, if you want to progress your physique, you spend the money on supplements and whatever else, spend the time on making sure that, your body's optimally primed to lift, to progress.
Sorry, Mike, I'm just going to jump in. I think that's a really good message that, that so many lifters, and myself included, have neglected over the years. And when you pull it apart and give it that attention that you have, Mike, in terms of, if you want it to be a career or you really want to be the best you can be, that's time well spent. And I'm thinking, usually have a pre-workout half an hour before you train. There's half an hour of fucking around in there somewhere that could be better used rather than just sitting around talking to people in the gym while you wait to, get ready to train.
Yeah, you guys can chat still. It's like just chat and move, chat and warm up, chat and, and go through your exercises. Like, it's one of those things where, again, I know it's not cool, you know what I mean? It's much cooler just to squat heavy. But if you take that time, then it'll definitely pay dividends long term. And like I said, I started late. So I started, my first competition 2015. I've been training for 7 years only. My first competition was like 79 kilos. In 2017, I competed at 79 kilos. And now I'm looking to compete at 120 kilos. And so people often ask like, oh, how in 4 years have you put on essentially, 40 kilos of stage weight? And I pay attention to detail. I just, in terms of if there's something that can make me, 1% better in any area, then I'm not afraid to commit the time or resources to prioritize that. You know what I mean? And that means I might have to take away from something else, or just balance things a little bit better. Like I've got a, wife who supports me. I've got 3 kids. I work full time. I'm a sole provider. So there's no reason why if I can, that other people can't either, because I've only started coaching as of COVID. COVID forced me into coaching full time. And it's a blessing in disguise for sure. So you take the blessing from, essentially a bad situation. But before that, I've always had, full-time office jobs, sales jobs on the road, and still trying to fit in everything else as well. So, if you want it to happen, there's always a way to make it happen for sure.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, my coach has just sent me a new plan, and I've just started with a new coach, and on my non-training days, he put in half an hour of posing, foam rolling, mobility, stretching, that sort of thing, and I went, "Fuck, that's a no-brainer. Why have I not been doing that all along?" When I'm not at the gym for an hour and a half, I've got that time. Why am I not already doing that? But I wanted to just sandwich that in by kind of what happens at the back end. What do you do at the other end of your training and for recovery, sort of post-training?
So post-training, again, like, everyone, I'm always in a rush as well. There's always something to do. So I finish training, I've got to be somewhere, or do something. But I do try and spend, 5-10 minutes warming down in terms of like I normally sit and just sort of let myself settle. Let my blood pressure, my blood sugars, everything settle down. I spend a bit of time static stretching. And then for me, the recovery in terms of that is based around nutrition, being timing, and then also, my treatments. So like I said, I get a 2-hour myo generally every week, maximum 2 weeks, including the chiro sometimes as well. So manipulation and deep tissue massage with needling, the scraping, anything that's required except cupping. I hate that. Then I spend a bit of time in the fridge, the cryotherapy chamber. So that's, temperatures minus 140 degrees Celsius. I'll generally do 3 minutes in there, 2 minutes out, 3 minutes back in, once a week, as much as I can as well from that point of view. And those are really my go-tos in terms of recovery and making sure that I'm ready to go. I noticed the biggest improvements in my strength, in my look, in my sleeping when I'm doing regular cryotherapy treatments. So have you guys got access to a cryo chamber over there at all, or done it?
I would say in Auckland they do, but other than that, maybe in Wellington, but she's pretty limited. We're probably a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of that. I think, I know the rugby boys do things like ice baths and stuff like that, but I don't think they have cryotherapy stuff.
Yeah, so look, ice baths can be very beneficial as well. And in times where, like during lockdown, when I haven't had access to a cryo chamber, I've done ice baths. So I've gone to, the local servo, bought 3 bags of ice and filled up the bathtub and just, hopped in for 5 minutes, hot shower for, 2 minutes and back in for 5 minutes. And honestly, it sucks again, because I personally take it as a challenge as well. Because I'm like, well, hey, if I can do this, I can do anything. Do you know what I mean? And sitting in a, freezing cold bath for 5 minutes sucks, no doubt about it. But you zone out, you develop a mental toughness from doing this as well. And like I said, you develop this ability to say, well, hey, like if I can do this, I can literally do anything. But the recovery aspects, exponential. My biggest gains when I'm getting regular cryotherapy, in terms of like, just skin tightening even. I feel tighter, it stimulates, collagen production in the skin, positive endorphins. You'll sleep the best you've ever slept. Like I said, either from cryotherapy or the ice bath. The ice bath is hard because when you've got the ice sort of touching your extremities, they can go numb. But when it's a chamber and it's sort of only 3 minutes, it's cold, but you don't have that touch on your extremities. You don't get that numbness type thing. But again, it's about making do with if that's something that's going to allow you to perform 10% better or cover 10% more, then it's probably worthwhile doing once a week, once a fortnight. You know what I mean? But again, even cold showers in the morning, they can help, or before bed.
You time that around a particular workout? You time that after legs? You time that around a particular workout, say after legs or after your back that you're trying to bring up?
So normally I would time that on the day of my last session before my rest day. So let's say I train legs today, that afternoon or that night, I would do it, and then the next day, full recovery. Same with massage. I can never train after a deep tissue massage. I have to get so I have to train and then get my deep tissue massage, then ideally a rest day the next day. That is what has worked well for me, because I think that you forget that, excuse me, when you are, you're training, you've got recovery demands for that. but also getting deep tissue massage and going through cryotherapy, like in a cryo chamber or in an ice bath, you'll burn up to 500 calories, maybe 1,000 calories in that 5 minutes, just from the body trying to stay warm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that also, it's a demand on the central nervous system, because your CNS is saying, hey, what's going on? It doesn't recognize this environment. But also it's a demand, it requires a recovery. So too much of that and you'll crash as well. So you think about training legs, then having a deep tissue massage or a cryo, like your body's just going, I need a break. And so you have to give it that break. Yeah. And in the past, the one thing I've struggled to do is really take rest periods or take rest days. Even I can tell you right now, since I started training only 7 years ago, I've only ever taken a maximum of 2 days off the gym, and I was forced to by a coach. So no matter where I've traveled, no matter where I've been, I know there's been times where I've been selling, solar panels in Billawheeler, which is like, 4 hours mid Queensland. And the closest gym was an hour and a half drive. And, so I get up at 3 a.m., drive an hour and a half to the gym to do stairs for cardio, then have my oats in the car, nap for an hour, wake back up, do my training session, then back in, drive an hour and a half back to the motel, and enough to start my working day. So I've just I've really struggled to take time out of the gym. But obviously as you grow, as you progress, as you advance and get stronger, you need to really, really prioritize recovery even more so, because again, although your muscles are, maybe they're bigger, maybe they're more tolerant, the body's more tolerant, maybe taking, anabolics, which increases your recovery capabilities as well. And those things might differ from when you start as you progress and advance, but your central nervous system and these sort of things remain the same, very much. And if you don't give yourself that time to recover, then again, that's when injuries can happen. That's when you crash. That's when you all of a sudden need to take a week out of the gym or 2 weeks out of the gym because you're so stuffed. So, thinking that if you're young out there who think you can train 6-7 days, double sessions, I've done it before with Mila Sasev. We did 6 days training, and then AM and PM sessions, giant sets, you name it. And you can only do it for so long before you crash. So if you're young out there, don't be afraid to take an extra rest day here or there. Now, again, I'm the biggest one to say, don't bitch out, so to speak, and take a rest day when you don't need one, because that's just, I don't think it's, I see a lot of that as well with some of my clients. I shouldn't say all of them, but some of them. And so I'm the first to say, hey, do you really need to take an extra rest day? Did you need to take 4 days off the gym? Because I know I never have. And I'm no better than anyone else. So I think that ultimately, again, listen to your body, yes, but be really honest with yourself as well. And again, look for yourself in terms of what you were saying before, taking more recovery measures before or after certain body parts, certain sessions. I find the maximum benefit for me has been after my last session before a rest day. So I've got the next day to fully recover, and no real stress on the body at all, maybe some steps, but get the full day to be out of the gym, let the body rejuvenate, and then I hit it again hard. And then the next day after a rest day, that's when I'll hit my weakest body part. So the day after my rest day is when I'll hit my back, because I want to be as fully charged, as fully primed as possible to give as much to that session as I can.
I've really enjoyed listening to this, because I've already gone for a walk in my head, and I've worked out where I'm going to go and buy my ice bath from and have ice baths out, because there's no chance of there being a cryotherapy chamber out here, because only 300 people live where I live. So, but I've already worked out which day and before my weakest body part, and it's already planned. So I've taken a lot out of this, because not a lot of coaches spend a lot of time or at the level of detail that you do around something which is absolutely critical, because, no matter how hard you go in the gym, if you're not recovering, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, I think if you're not recovering, you're not going hard in the gym. So it works both ways, because if you're just smashing yourself for 6 sessions and you wonder why in 6 weeks you haven't increased your bench, or whatever lift you're tracking, there's reasons around that, and sometimes it's not just eating more food, because, I found, honestly, when I've been force feeding almost 8,000 calories a day, clean food, no junk, it's a lot of food to get down. And Like I'm waking up at 2 a.m. just to drink an oat shake and all this sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden I drop back to 6,000 calories. And when I'm eating that almost 8,000 calories, my weight struggles to increase. It's like 127, maybe 128, 129. I drop back to 6,000. All of a sudden I'm 130, 131, looking better, looking tighter. And the point is the body can only really assimilate or use as much food as it can at any one time. So I found that just adding more food didn't really give me any more benefit. Dropping back the food, I felt better. I wasn't as down about I have to eat every 2 hours, and actually improved. So again, most people say, well, if I'm not recovering, then I just need to add more food or add more drugs, which is again the wrong way to go about it. It's like, no, there's other areas I can look at.
Hey,
but it's not cool. It's not cool to stretch. It's cool to just take more trend. You know what I mean? So why not?
Hey, you're talking about eating 7,500, 8,000 calories of clean food. I pushed this off season and got to about 4.5, maybe slightly more. But how long did it take you in terms of progression to reach that amount? Like how many sort of calories were you pushing each year more than the previous?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I think that, in terms of my lean body mass, that's what really drove the amount of calories I needed to go up. So, not the more I weighed, but the more lean muscle I carried. So, it was progressive as you just mentioned as well. It's like all of a sudden, 5,000 calories just, wasn't doing anything for me. And I needed to go to 5.5. I needed to go to 6. I think that also that matched in terms of my strength, in terms of everything else progressing as well. I think that it can be a misconception amongst, I don't want to say amateurs in Australia, from what I notice, of thinking that bodybuilding is an eating competition, and the fact is that it's not. It's like, oh wow, I wish I could eat 8,000 calories. It's like, you really don't until you have to do it every day. You might do it one day, I think, yeah, that was easy, but try for 6 months, and you just get. I developed leaky gut from it, all types of digestion issues. I became intolerant to beef completely, just about. So trying to find ways where I could eat more food has led me to, totally restructure my digestion and ability. And I went through a phase of thinking, bigger is better. I just wanted to be as big as I could. I wanted to, weigh over 100 kilos, compete as a super heavy, because that was what I wanted to do when I was younger. And I probably, when maybe I don't have any regrets, but if I look back, would I've probably gone a little bit slower? Probably. I would have started earlier, number one. I would have gone slower in terms of my progression, because right now, it's like, for me, I have to eat that much, but then I can't afford for my waist to get any bigger at the same time. Not if I want to have a career in the pros, which I do. That's my goal. So I'm sort of fighting against it now. We're thinking, well, I've got the size, but I really need to maintain, or not push out any further than what I can. So now I'm taking smaller progressions each time.
Just a thought there, and I'm sure the way you analyze things, you'll be all over this. But in terms of managing your digestive system, in terms of maximizing the uptake from the amount of calories, because obviously if you're absorbing more at 6,500 calories than you are at 8,000, would be towards your advantage in terms of keeping your waist small. So what sort of things do you do in terms of making sure that the amount of food you're taking in, you're getting as much of that as an uptake as possible?
So I found that sort of basic things like digestive enzymes, HCl with pepsin, have been staples of mine for a long time. Always having a good quality, green supplement powder, again, with digestive enzymes, but also with a lot of other, digestive qualities. Consuming, live raw foods as well, things like sauerkraut. There's so many different flavors of sauerkraut these days that you can definitely find something that you like, but those help for me as well. Drinking enough water. I'm not drinking too much fluids with your meals, so really separating your water and your meals. I try and eat a meal, then drink, a liter of water, half an hour before or half an hour after, if that makes sense. Because I think, food and then water in the stomach just looks to expand it even more. Definitely been big on things like, vitamins and supplementation in general, bone broths. I found a lot of, benefit from as well. And when I say benefits, you're not going to take a bone broth or a sauerkraut, product, eat it and go, wow, like I feel amazing. But the thing is, consistently over time, it will assist. And then when you stop taking it, that's when you notice, like, oh, hang on a second, that's what it feels like without it. So realistically, yeah, choosing foods that agree with your stomach, number one. So trial and error there, obviously over time, working out, what's making you feel a certain way. The body gets really good at at just surviving. And what I mean by that is it's like you can be intolerant to eggs, but it might be intolerant so small, the body's like, you know what, I can deal with this. And the body finds a way, subhanAllah, to make it work. And that's a gift in the body itself. So we think, oh yeah, it's okay, we can eat eggs, but they may be causing us to hold, a layer of fluid around any area. And that's just one example. So I think that really be in touch with what you're eating, trial and error things. Don't get emotionally connected to any food type. My favorite food in the world was beef mince. One protein source I could eat like as much as I wanted of, and no dramas at all. And I became intolerant to it from eating too much simply. So now I can't have it at all, but it was my favorite. So if I was really stubborn, I'd say, no, I'm just going to eat it because I don't get any health implications from it. I just get really bloaty and gassy and it's uncomfortable. But I could probably just do it if I wanted to and just, find a way to deal with that pain. But there's no need to because it's just food. There's another type of food I can have. So now I get lamb backstrap mince, and that's my mince sauce. So I think that, choosing food types that suit with you, go with the basics, like I said, digestive enzymes, having things like pineapple. So choosing foods that have digestive, enzymes or qualities, with them as well, like the sauerkraut, like a good bone broth, and ultimately, a good quality probiotic. I take mine on an empty stomach, so first thing in the morning, and realizing that filling your body with as much good bacteria as possible is important. I see a lot of people also who take a lot of pain meds, things like Nurofen or Panadol even as well, who have bad digestion. And I really think a lot of it comes down to, the medication and the drugs. I obviously, I compete and I take, anabolics, under strict supervision from a coach and strict supervision from an endocrinologist in terms of my blood readings and blood work. But I choose to be as natural as possible in any other area of life. So if I have a headache for whatever reason, I won't take a Panadol or Nurofen because I'm all about balance. Like there's a certain level of things that I do at the moment that would be considered unhealthy. So I want to try and be as natural as I can in other areas. So I think that, a lot of time when you mix those two, if that makes sense, it can cause underlying issues as well. And digestion,
100%, man, 100%. I think the anti-inflammatories are a big one. A lot of people will rely on like your naproxens or your diclofenac and that, and I know that they're tough on your kidneys as well. And the last thing if you're on a decent cycle, you want to be doing is loading your kidneys with more issues, as well as the issues that you have with the gut lining and that with those type of products. So absolutely agree in terms of mitigating risk.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's just about really understanding that we're not bulletproof, number one, and digestion is the key to everything. So I've read studies where as soon as clinically depressed people start improving their diets and digestion, that they almost cure themselves. The reason why is that because 90% or more of your serotonin production starts in your stomach, not in your head where you think it is. So, everything that we intake goes to the stomach first. So there's more nerve endings in your stomach than there is in your brain. It's crazy when you think about it, but it's such an important aspect, and my job, or part of my job is to eat. So it's like, I've got to find a way to, to make that as optimal as possible, over a long period of time.
Awesome. Hey, we'll change tack for a bit, eh? I just thought I found something just before. Where are we? Oh, bear with me. Right. Got Chicago coming up, guys. So, Mike Tab, do you want to kick off with your top 5 for Chicago?
I'll be repeating what I've heard on other podcasts, I'm pretty sure. Hunter, is Akeem still doing it? He's doing
sorry, man. I'm talking Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. My bad. Yeah.
Probably Akeem first then. I reckon Jamie might sneak in. He's looking pretty good. Top 5 anyway. I looked at the list really briefly. There was 3 or 4 names that I recognised, but no, I'd just be parroting what someone else says. So I'll leave it to the experts. Someone a bit close. Both you guys are a bit closer to being pro than me. So,
Mike, do you want to give us your top 5?
Yeah, I think, look, in terms of, previous competition histories, Kim hasn't competed this season yet. So it's hard to know, what shape of. I saw a 9-day out, I think, picture of him as well. And he looks great. But the thing is, that Kim on stage just looks, he sort of has this crazy, lats, lat, pop from the front, and just really, really muscularly dense, and conditions normally pretty good. So in terms of, the level of bodybuilders on that list, Kim's the winner, hands down. Then you got Hassan Mustafa, who, is yet to peak. Hopefully he does this show. He works with Chris Aceto, so I can't imagine they'll get it wrong for too long in terms of this season. And he's sticking out the contest, so they must really want an Olympia berth. I'm excited to see the Giant, Jamie, because I think for as tall as he is, he looks fantastic. No one's beaten him in a front lat spread. It's phenomenal. But he's just got some really, really good, lines now that, it's sort of, you don't see him as just being a really tall and stringy as some taller guys can be. So I'm excited to see him. I think that, Eddie Bracamontes, Dorian Haywood, they'll round out your top 6, if that makes sense. Mohammed Shaban as well, obviously. But then Andrea, I think it's Muzzi from Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, he just looks crazy on the gram anyway. So he's going to be interesting when he stands next to someone to see exactly where he lines up. Kim's a front runner for me. I think Jamie will be a top 2 or top 3 from what I've seen. Again, it's just who knows on the day. And then Sam Mustafa's going to be fighting for that sort of 2 to 3 spot as well. And the rest we made up by the Andre, Mitzi's, the Eddie Bracamontes, Dorian Haywood, and then the list will, the rest of the guys, I wouldn't be able to tell you without seeing them.
Okay, I'll have my shot. I'm going Akeem, obviously. A little bit biased because I've met the guy and he's a great guy. Who do I have in second? I'm picking Mohammed Shaban or Hassan in second. Third, Jamie, I'll put him in fourth. I'd love to see him break that top 3. Really would love to see Jamie. He's made some fantastic improvements. Eddie and Dorian, they'll be scrapping it out, no doubt. The guy I'm interested to see is William Martins, a Brazilian guy. Seen a couple of photos of him and he looks nuts by himself. But let's see what he looks like on the stage. It's going to be a good one, though.
It's not a bad show. I mean, a lot of the shows so far have been, a good maybe up to 2 or 3 or 4, but there's been no real, I suppose, outstanding. I think the people who should have won have won, and there's no one who's really no deep lineup. So I think that hopefully with these later shows in the year, starting with this one, you're going to see a lot more depth to the field. And then leading to the Arnold, I think that, that should be a big show as well. So although it's not Olympia qualifying, it is for the next year. So, you have people in shape, maybe a couple of weeks out who will try and, get the qualification for the next year as well under the belt. But I think this stand should pick up a lot towards this, later end of the year, leading to the Olympia. I'm excited to see Ian up on stage. I think Ian's looking ridiculously big, and he should bring good condition because he normally always does. So the rematch between him and Hunter will be great.
Yeah, a bit of a dogfight in the next couple of shows because there are going to be some big names that miss out. we still haven't seen Ruley compete, so he's going to pop up somewhere.
Yeah, he'll be in one of those shows again. You know, it makes sense for Rolly to do the Arnold's, obviously. You know, for prize money, number one, for prestige, because you know Rolly's a top 5 bodybuilder at any show. You know, winner a lot as well. And then you've got, like I said, you know, a lot of those other guys who, you know, are in there. I think that you know we've still got to see Kai Green compete at some point, and that's something that, like, you know, Kai Green was my favorite bodybuilder up until probably a couple of years ago. I was like, I'm just over his junk,
Yeah.
you know. But you know, he signed a contract with Redcon that says he has to compete at some point this year. So you know, again, I'm just, you know, on the background. Not to, if you mention his name now, everyone sort of, you know, rolls their eyes, but it's exciting if he does compete, because, you know, I think that he'll, you know, bring something crazy to stage, and it's always good to see the best compete.
Yeah. It was a shame to sort of see him step away, but I guess, you know, everyone's got their reasons, and you know, when he comes back, if he comes back, I'll be there watching.
Yeah. I don't know if he could win again. I mean, Olympia, because of his age, and there's just so much has changed since. But who knows? Maybe he can, maybe he can't, you know. But Hunter looks crazy. Hunter looks, you know. I saw someone post the other day a picture of Lee Labrada from, I think, 92 or something, and looked amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously aesthetic as, great muscle bellies, you know, 190 pounds, there's nothing of him. Everyone's like, oh, this is why he's so much better than Hunter. But I'm like, for me, it's Hunter all day long. Like, Hunter is just like crazy big. He messed up his Olympia. I don't know what happened there. I think he had a nolotol shot or something that went wrong with his pec. He saw that lump there. But I think that if he can, you know, bring condition like he's bringing now, and then he'll be, you know, definitely future O talks for sure. You know, I think more so than Nick Walker. Everyone's talking about Nick Walker, and, you know, Nick Walker is sort of more my physique than anyone else, because he's sort of like, you know, hasn't got a small waist, a lot of muscle on a frame, and brings nasty condition, and that's what I can bring. So I should be his number one fan, and not that I'm not a fan, but I'm just like a bigger fan of Hunter Labrada. So I think that he looks crazy, and he'll be hard to beat.
I'm just keeping my eye on the quiet Englishman who's sneaking in, very reminiscent of the Shadow.
James.
Yes. Yeah, can't wait.
I'm a big follower of James as well. I like, you know, he lifts heavy, you know, and he's a likable guy as well. Doesn't, you know, talk too much drama. Loves a laugh. And he should look great. You know, again, he's big, a lot of muscle, and gets in condition. And at the end of the day, I think, you know, Rami winning is a sign that, you know, you have classic bodybuilding, and that's the place for the shape and the prettiness of it all. And not that, you know, open bodybuilding can't be pretty, but it's definitely should be still, you know, how much muscle do you have and how conditioned are you? If you're the biggest and most conditioned, you should win a show. And that's Big Ramy. I mean, the biggest, condition was great. He wins. You know, as much as others might have a slightly better shape or whatever the case may be. So yeah, James big, and James gets in condition. So yeah, he's definitely, you know, dangerous.
Be interesting to see what another year of trying to etch that detail into Rami's legs looks like. I can't imagine how many hours of scraping he's done this year.
Yeah, look, again, so details one of those things, but I've been finding that, you know, my legs gain size pretty quickly when I started training them, as hard as I did. The details now, and he's starting to come through in terms of, like, you know, separation through, you know, sartorius into, you know, upper outer quad, you know, even upper lower quad, rec femoris. All that detail is now just starting to come through with, you know, muscle maturity, skin getting a bit maybe thinner as well. So it takes time to get the detail. You know, size is one thing, but then to have that detail, you know, and like the way that legs separate, like if you look at Lucky, the way that Lucky's legs separate, and from like, is, you know, he makes his legs look, you know, 4 or 5 inches bigger than what they are. So it's crazy when that detail comes through, for sure.
Hey, look, we are going to do a wrap, but before we do, Mike, I really want to thank you for coming on board, and I think that people that watch this podcast will really learn a few things, and
I did
see the importance of paying attention to those details. If you want to contact Mike, hit him on his Instagram. He's coaching, so do that. And Mike, as we always do on our show, we hand over to you to say thank you to anyone you want to thank, your sponsors, your friends, your families, those that have supported you along your journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks to you, Nate and Mike, for having me on. I appreciate the time to come and chat with you guys, share my experiences as well. It's something I'm very big on, passing on information, knowledge, and hopefully someone out there, not just yourselves, but someone out there can take some of this information and and put it to use and apply it to their life. So I appreciate the chance to be heard. So thanks for the platform. Thanks to my wife and family for supporting me always. They're number one, because again, I think that a lot of times in bodybuilding, you see people say that, they can't have balance. They can't, work and then have a family and bodybuild, and, people end up sort of, moving away from those things. So, because they think that it takes away from them. But, or when they're in a prep and they think that they've got to lean away from other people because they might, get involved in a prep. But I think you've really got to understand that in times of those, it's good to have people you can lean in towards for support, so build an environment around yourself that's going to support what you want to do. I mean, understand that the more you give to them, the more they'll give back to you. So thanks to them for always being there. Huge for me. TMJ, they've supported me as well over the years, and realistically, anyone who I chat to and have worked with over the years, my coach now, Dean McKillop, I've built up a really great relationship with him. And it's first time in a long time where I really feel like the person who's coaching, guiding, and helping me, really cares about my results, and has got my best interest at heart. So I appreciate you, Dean, and Flex Success. All of my team as well, one team. I hope I'll make sure they get on and watch this and support you guys and follow and subscribe. But thank you also as well for, again, supporting me and allowing me to help you guys and be an influence in your lives. And look, realistically, guys, I'm just thankful, for the opportunities I have. I think that, again, if I can send a message out to anyone, it's the fact that, this day and age, we live such a lifestyle of wanting to impress or, be a certain way or a certain standard based on, what we see on Instagram and social media and all those other things. But the minute that you can really, really, I think, separate yourself from the fact of, apart from the important people in your life, you've got no one else to impress. You've got no one else to have to do something for, or be a person to that's going to serve anyone else's benefit, if that makes sense. So really, really be in touch with who you are. The minute that you can be by yourself but not feel alone is the minute you know who you are. And then when you're truly true with yourself and you show love to yourself and those close to you, you feel so much less pressure, so much less expectation in terms of what you have or have not to do. There's just something I see with a lot of people who I coach and help, but also peers in the industry as well. A lot of fakeness, a lot of people, not being themselves for the sake of trying to impress someone. And so, I just think that, the more that everyone can be real, be themselves, the better quality of life they'll have. So I hope that message helps some people as well.
Great message, bro. Great message, and really appreciate it. Hey, guys, thank you for watching, and we will catch up with you later in the week. In the meantime, stay safe out there and have a productive time in the gym. Thank you, people.
Yeah.